Hello everyone and welcome to Luminar Coffee Break. I'm Angela Andrieux and today I'm going to show you how to make a soft image appear sharper. Luminar AI has a bunch of different tools that affect the way we perceive detail, and I'm going to show you a couple of my favorites in today's episode. Let me switch screens and we'll get started. So up on the screen I have a photo that I captured in San Francisco several years ago. I loved the area, I loved the scene, but unfortunately, unbeknownst to me at the time, the autofocus on my camera, on my lens, was malfunctioning, and all of my images, or most of them, turned out just a little bit soft. So let's take a quick peek here at the before. There we go, there's the before and the after. I was able to, with just a few easy steps, make this image appear a lot sharper using the tools in Luminar AI. So let's jump in and right click on my image here. I'm going to go to adjustments and revert this to the original so I can walk you through the entire process. Before we get too much further, I wanted to say a quick hello to Pat, Joseph, 78 Degrees Films. So glad you guys are all joining me today. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. Make sure if you have questions as we go along, pop those into the chat or in the comments below. We'll do our best to get those answered for you. All right, so to take a look at the softness in this image, let me zoom in here to 200% so you can really see that it just doesn't have great detail. It's not horribly out of focus, but it is definitely soft. Part of this is because my lens was malfunctioning. Part of it is because it's a raw image, and raw images naturally need to be sharpened. When you shoot a photo in JPEG, your camera does the processing, adds some sharpening. When you shoot RAW, that sharpening is not applied. There's no sharpening applied inside your camera, so you have to apply it after the fact. So what I'm going to do, let me zoom back out here, and I'm going to start with one of my favorite templates. It's down here under Essentials in the Scenery category, and it's called Clear and Sharp. And I love what it did to this image. It just made all of the details pop, and it added almost everything that I think this image is going to need. Now, we can always go in and refine this, but let's take a quick look here at the before and the after. Really big difference just with one click using that Clear and Sharp template. So if you have an image that needs a little bit of extra punch with the detail, I would give that template a try. Likely it'll get you probably at least 80% of the way there. Now let's go over to the Edit tab and take a look at the tools that were used inside of this particular template. It used Enhance AI, which is going to improve tone and color, exposure, those types of things. The light tools, so that I think we touched in here to maybe our curves. It looks like it added a little bit of contrast here in our curves. I'm going to close that back up. And it also added some structure and details. Now, the two tools that we're going to talk the most about today are going to be structure and details. And these are the two that I'm going to go to most often when I need to give something a punch of detail. Let's start with structure. This is going to affect mid-tone contrast, which enhances the appearance of detail. So as I pull this up, you can see it's getting very kind of HDR-ish, very, very defined, and a little bit over the top. Boost is going to affect the finer details, and as I pull that up, that's going to make everything even a little bit more crunchy. Let's even zoom in to 200% so we can take a good look at what's happening here with the structure tool. Let me turn it off and back on. You know, it added a lot of detail, but I think it's definitely over the top. I'm going to go back to my history over here in the right-hand panel, and I'm going to go back to where I applied my template, and that's going to take me back to the setting that was included in the template. So if we click back over to tools, we can see that just a tiny bit of structure was added. I might bring that up just a little bit more, but not too much. Let's zoom out and take a look at the overall effect. There's the before and the after. Very subtle, and that's what I'm going for. The bigger bang for your buck is going to be with details. Now let's take a look at this much closer. We'll zoom this into 200% and see what this tool does. I'm going to turn it off and then back on again, and you can see, especially paying attention to the text on the boats, the names of the boats, that's where you're going to see the biggest difference in that detail and the readability of it. So again, if I turn it off, a little bit soft, and then back on. So it's adding a little bit of small, medium, and large details. Typically when I'm working with the detail sliders, I like to keep the small details on the low end. So I'm going to pull that back a little bit, but I'm going to bring up my medium details a little higher, and I'm going to leave my large details right about there. I'm also going to increase the sharpening a little bit more, and that's going to hit at those edges and really increase the overall sharpness of the image. Now, take a look here at the water. I feel like it's gotten a little bit over detailed. And we'll see by turning this tool off and back on, this is where that detail in the water is coming from. So it's a little bit more than I like, but I love what it did to the boats. So I'm going to zoom back out and I'm going to do a mask to remove that effect from the water, but I want to keep it on everything else because I think that detail works well with the rest of the image. So I'll grab my masking tool, I'll click erase, and I'm going to make my brush size quite a bit bigger. And I'm going to start painting in over the water to remove that extra detail from the water because the water just doesn't need it. So we'll go ahead and clean that up a little bit. And this is just going to give us a little bit better result. Now, as I did that, I got a little bit carried away and I think I got a little bit of my erase on those boats. So what we can do is go to the ellipses, show mask, and this is going to show us where we were brushing. Now I want to actually fix this little edge down here at the bottom. I'm going to grab paint and then I'm just going to paint back in along those boats. Make sure that those boats are getting all of that great detail and that our water is protected. All right, so I'm going to click out of that tool and that's going to turn that mask overlay off. And now we've added a lot of great detail to the boats, to the sky, and protected that water. So the last thing I want to do with this image is I do want to give it a bit of a crop. I want to refine the composition. So I'm going to go to Composition AI and I'm going to do this manually. I'm just going to pull in from this bottom left corner and drag this up so we can get that boat there out of the bottom left corner. And I think that is a much more pleasing composition. I'll hit return on my keyboard to go ahead and commit that crop. You can also just click on the Composition AI tool to close it back up or click into another tool. You don't have to hit the return key. That's just something I do. It makes it easy for me. I'm very fond of keyboard shortcuts. So hope you guys enjoyed this and got some ideas of how to add a little bit of extra detail and pop to your images. Let's take one last look here at the before and the after. And I was really going for a natural effect with this. I didn't want it to be over the top. I didn't want it to look like a garish HDR, but I did want to bring out those details since my lens had everything looking just a tiny bit soft. And I think this did the trick. Now, as you probably noticed, that template did 95% of that heavy lifting. All I had to do was go in, take a look at what tools were used by that little dot next to them, and turn them off and on to see how much of an effect it had, and then refine it a little bit by adding a little bit more or taking a little bit away. And then we brushed out that area here in the bottom to protect the water. Let me take a look at the chat here. Hello, Jerry, Brian, Dahlia, so glad you guys are able to join me today. It looks like Dahlia is asking, is this through Lightroom? No, today I'm using Luminar AI and I'm using it as a standalone. However, you can use Luminar AI as a plugin with Lightroom Classic and it works brilliantly. Stay tuned for some of our future episodes and look through our archives. We do have episodes where we work in conjunction with Lightroom and Luminar AI, and we have more of them coming up. Hope that helps. All right. Looks like that's everything. If you guys have any other questions or need any other clarification on this episode, make sure you put them into the comments below. I do go through those and pay attention to every bit of feedback that you guys give me. If you like this episode, make sure you hit us with a thumbs up here on YouTube. We always love seeing that. Our producers love seeing that. And I hope to see you again at the next coffee break. Bye, everyone.